My name's David Blistein, and I'm a writer from near Brattleboro. And I have to tell you before I start that I've never taken a biology or a chemistry class. So if anyone here actually understands what I'm talking about, please come and explain it to me later, okay? Neurotransmitters are molecules that neurons, aka brain cells, use to communicate. This will not be a test. There are a lot of them. I think there are 100 of them. Some of these you'll recognize. Dopamine's pretty familiar. GABA to calm down is pretty familiar. Norepinephrine's kind of familiar. Mostly what we want to know, of course, is their effect on our sex lives, right? Now, dopamine touches sexual desire. I can't say it, but I do have to read you serotonins, and I've been practicing, so please, if you could be quiet. 5-HT, which is serotonin, is released in the LHA, but not in the MPOA at the time of ejaculation. Increasing 5-HT in the LHA by microinjection of an SSRI increased the latency to begin copulating, and also the latency to first ejaculation measured from the time the male first intromitted. So, intromitted, I never knew that. You intromitted. Thank you. Now, this was, we'll talk about that. This is my gateway drug for self-medication. I think it was for many of us, and dopamine and serotonin gets you up in the morning, but also like gets you really acute so you can go to school. It could be Wheaties with a lot of sugar on it. It really didn't matter, but now we finally know why Tony had such a crazed look on his face, right? Now, then the next thing was to get into some serious self-medication when you're young without our parents knowing. A lot of caffeine, a lot of chocolate. You know those two on the sides. If you grew up in Providence, you know about Awful Awfuls in the Newport Creamery. They're made with 3 scoops of coffee ice cream and very little else except some autocrat coffee syrup, which is the best high you'll get next to a double espresso. So you go in there after school, you're good for the day. This picture I should almost leave up by itself and just let everyone just, you know, just capture that mood of being a kid and just waiting for your mom to go away so you can pour yourself a little more. But this and Dristan, they're both antihistamines. The cool thing about Dristan is it taught us how to sniff or snort without sneezing right away. Then we got off to college. When we went to college, we were able to do some of our own self-medication. I'm embarrassed to say that my first drunk was on Boone's Farm. I'll never live it down. Started smoking, gave it up later. Drank lots of coffee. And the most important thing, of course, even in the late 60s, we practiced safe sex. Manny, you might not be aware of that, but we did. Now, we also did some things that maybe aren't so legal. I actually never saw one of those acid things like that, but the most important thing about this is everyone touches on these neurotransmitters, but LSD, they still haven't figured out what the hell's going on. That's why I put down kitchen sink. The other cool thing is if you ever give a talk like this, the DEA website is fabulous because we always knew what a nickel bag and a dime bag was, but who knew what a penny bag was? When you're done self-medicating, eventually you go somewhere for help, and you get a doctor, and he pulls out this manual and gives you one of 300 different diagnoses, including some that say NOS, not otherwise specified, meaning they don't know how screwed up you really are. You gotta get one of those numbers because otherwise insurance won't cover it. And make sure the prescription's been pre-approved. I can't explain this. Every neuron has an axon with a lot of terminals going off. Everyone has dendrites that receives them. What we really have to know is there are 100 trillion synapses, give or take a few billion. So the next time someone tells you to still your mind, just say, yeah, you first, okay? Now, I'd love to explain the next slide, but who could do this? There are a lot of serotonin receptors. There's all the serotonin going up. There are these enzymes that are trying to, you know, eat the synapse. It's amazed that anything happens at all. The drugs you get all affect either how many neurotransmitters are on there, how long they stay in there, when they get eaten up, which receptor they hit. It's sort of complicated. Now, when you get a diagnosis like the one on the previous page that belonged to someone here, you go to the natural food store, the Brattleboro Co-op, and you look and say, is there any way I can deal with this without pharmaceuticals? And there are some ways, though I have to say most natural things are what are called precursors. They give your body more stuff to make the stuff with. So after a while, you say, hey, come on, let's start screwing around. Let's do some real drugs. And you have a lot to choose from. The reuptake inhibitors are selective, meaning ND, norepinephrine, dopamine. Now, they call these things tricyclics, and I didn't understand that for a long time, but really they're promiscuous reuptake inhibitors. They don't care which neurotransmitter they stop. They'll just stop it and say, go back and do your job and talk to us later. There are all these other drugs that they say, okay, I'm going to invent a mood stabilizer. They end up using it for bipolar. It keeps on going back and forth. They change their minds. Everyone knows these drugs, but I want to give a special shout out to Versed, which is the best reason to have a colonoscopy, and laughing gas or nitrous oxide, which is the best reason to have a root canal. So, reviewing all this, I mean, look at this list. I mean, I defy anyone here to say they haven't done more than 2 of these things. Everyday mind-altering substances, alternative mind, all these things are affecting your neurotransmitters. Controlled ones, illegal ones, MDA and its famous bastard child ecstasy, prescription mind-altering substances, and the amazing thing is there's one person in this room, and I'm not naming any names, who at one point or another has done every single one of them. And he's almost 60 years old. So when you make your decision, you go to the library and see all these different books, and you try to figure out, should I take drugs, should I take, what's depression like? Read William Styron's book, Darkness Visible, or Kay Jamison's books. But they want you to do it naturally, they want you to do it a real way, but you got to stay up to date, okay? So you got to find out that antidepressants have been proven useless and they're pushed on the public anyway. And most importantly, you don't want to look like this. This one scared me to death. But since my wife over there is Wendy, I have to say in front of all you, honey, I did tell you when I was antidepressants, you were there the very first time. So I can't say that I was never around. So finally, this is where I ended up. I don't know where you ended up. After trying all these things, 20 milligrams of Lamictal is a mood stabilizer. 60 milligrams of Cymbalta is pretty well known as an antidepressant. It's supposed to reduce pain. It's made me more sensitive to pain. Klonopin is Valium Light. I take a little nibble once in a while when I need it. I take the vitamin D. It seems to help. Multivitamin, when you see it, you just down it. So you got to decide how you're going to live. David Agos has written a big book called The End of Illness, and he says the way to live is just be healthy your whole life and die peacefully in your sleep. Hunter Thompson said that you should die skidding sideways, Chardonnay in one hand, chocolate in the other, body thoroughly used up, screaming yoo-hoo. When we make decisions about our health care, we base them on those assumptions. I'm going to finish with Paracelsus, a medieval alchemist, whose motto was, if you're not your own person or man, you're somebody else's. And Paracelsus, who was an alchemist back when they knew what alchemy really was, said, embrace all healing, treasure what you know, respect what you know not, and honor all who try to heal without distinction.